Hello and welcome back to another review. Apologies that the review has taken this long to get to. I was on holiday in South Africa. I literally got back last night and binge watched both episode 5 and 6 this morning, super early, and now I've had coffee. So I'm really actually trying to think about talking slow, because otherwise if I just let myself really talk, it would be like this, because that's how I really feel right now. So we're gonna pump the brakes. Apologies, I was in South Africa. I may have mentioned that. This is gonna be a whirlwind review. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna review both episode 5 and 6 separately within this video, but first we'll talk non-spoiler about both, and then we'll break it down into what I thought about episode 5 and then what I thought about episode 6. So non-spoiler overall. I was hoping that these episodes would have a bit more of a linkage to make this make sense, but actually they were wildly different episodes. Overall, it may be because I was tired. I didn't really feel both episodes. Like, I don't know, I was slightly disappointed in both of them. I think because it felt like they covered quite a lot of ground in not a lot of time. And by ground, I don't mean, actually the physical point A to point B. That's because they did actually cover quite a lot of ground technically. But I suppose in the gameplay section of ground, it felt very fast that they got through a lot that happened, which personally, my favourite parts of the game were kind of missed out. And it's frustrating because I understand why. But then I guess that's just the way that it has to be in terms of like how you have to tell a story on TV versus a video game. And I think I've just come to realize that whilst I do enjoy watching this, I don't think I'll ever enjoy it as much as playing the game, because personally, I feel like I relate more to what's going on when I'm the active participant in the game, and that just can't be replicated in TV form. So I'm sure people, well, I'm not sure, I haven't spoke to many people that haven't played the game but are watching the TV show. So I'm interested to see if it feels like it's too slow for them, or how those sort of, some of the sections of the game are hitting, because I just don't feel the emotional impact of some of these scenes compared to when I was on the stick, as they say in the biz, playing it and feeling it as Joel. There's a couple of scenes in both episodes that are pulled straight from the game. One I thought was good. The other one I didn't enjoy it as much. I'll talk about those more. But I don't think I'll ever like the scenes that are pulled from the game as much as the game themselves too. I think I've played the game way too many times. I enjoy that performance so much that whilst these are, I don't know, I do like when there's a slightly different take, because then me watching it feels like I've got something new. But when it is like line for line, I just can't help but hear the lines in my head the way that I know them. Like, I know the way that Ellie says, "Everyone except for fucking you." Like, it's weird. It feels like when you're watching it and that does happen, it's cool, but then it's like, I don't know, it's really weird to me seeing, like, it's almost a weird reenactment. I don't know. It's hard to place my finger quite on why I feel the scenes just don't hit as much, and I think that's why. So yeah. In the 2 episodes, we cover all of the stuff in Pittsburgh/Kansas City, as it's been changed to, and then we even get to the university. Actually, we complete quite a lot of the game in these 2 episodes. So it starts off with meeting Sam and Henry, and then we end at the end of fall, which in the game is like, I don't know, a good 5 hours or so, and that gets told in a span of 2 hours. Now, obviously, in the game, we're doing a lot of gameplay stuff, which gets cut out, but I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting so much of it to be, I don't know, I feel like rushed is the wrong word, because I guess if I'm watching it for the first time, it maybe doesn't feel rushed, but I don't know, I was just sad to see how much had changed. But once again, I'm talking like quite down. There was a lot of nice references and stuff that happened in both episodes, which is, again, like, oh, that's the thing, which, if you've played the game, you'll recognize, like, collectibles. I'm calling them collectibles. But I really like when they pull out, like, props that are directly lifted from the game. Like, when they go into not quite the sewers, but there's, like, the drawing of Ish and Kyle. Like, that's a really nice, like, I know that. And it looks the spitting image, which I think is, like, really impressive how they do that. Even the house rules. Like, I was like, wow. Like, stuff like that really hits when it hits well, I think. It's a nice little thing to see. So, yeah, I think I'm intrigued. I'm guessing the next episode, well, I don't want to speculate on the next episode just yet, but I have a feeling it might be the DLC based on what's happened. So I think let's get into spoiler territory and break down episode 5, because I feel like now I want to talk about. Oh, and before we just get into episode 5, there's still a little bit of infected action happening, and I'm still not 100% sold on the infected. Like, I don't like the hyper speed of them. Like, it just feels unrealistic to me based on how the infected work from my knowledge. Like, they're still, maybe in the TV they're trying to like ramp it up, but I don't know, I like how human they still feel in the game. Like, they're not, I know that they are like weird and they have changed, but they still have like the the physical attributes of a human being. And now all of a sudden when they're doing like backflips and shit and going, "Ah!" I'm just like, that it just doesn't, I don't know, it feels odd to me. So that's the only thing. I'm not quite, everything else I like, I feel like it's spot on, but the infected, the bloater did look amazing though, spoilers. But yeah, that stuff I'm still not sure on. Okay, let's go into spoilers. Episode 5. So episode 5 picks up when we meet, well, actually it doesn't pick up from when we meet Henry and Sam. We actually pick up from before, so you get a bit of backstory on Henry and Sam, and then they meet Joel and Ellie, and then it ends at the end of summer. So they go through that whole bit with, the classic scene, which stopped me playing the game for a good 3 months. The whole how Sam and Henry and Sam's journey comes to an end with Sam getting infected and Henry having to kill both him and himself, which, that again, it's one of those things that it didn't resonate for me as much as watching it originally. It was done slightly different. And I think one of the reasons it didn't hit for me is because we don't really meet Sam and Henry or spend that much time with them compared to the game. Like, it felt a little hollow to me. I didn't care for any of the Hunter stuff. That's why I thought I thought this whole Kansas City, I keep saying Pittsburgh, but you know what I mean. I thought it would span 3 episodes, so it's such a large part of the game, and I love that part of the game. I love meeting Sam and Henry, Henry and Sam. I always call them Sam and Henry, even though it's Henry and Sam, you know what I'm saying. And getting to know them through the game. I like going through the sewers and like doing that whole story, and then even the suburbs where they start to become friends, and you think that maybe this adventure can happen with all of them. And because they soften up, because at first it's a bit like uneasy allies, but then towards the end you're like, oh great, and then it means that the payoff of when the ending happens, you're like, damn, like, things could change like that for anybody. Like, once you're bit, it's done. And so I felt that didn't quite work for me. Like, I didn't feel like it was an earned ending like it is in the game for their story. Like, it felt very rushed. I didn't really care either about this new sub-story about Henry being an informant or whatever it was called, and, to the main bad girl's brother, like, I don't know. I just remember there was a lot of bad guy chat that I just was like, I zoned out of slightly. And especially when it just ended so quickly, it felt even more redundant. I don't know. I'm not sure if other people enjoyed that storyline or not, but I didn't care for it. I wish there was a bit more time. Like, as I said, this is my favourite part of the game. And it was nice that they did go to the tunnels and we saw the underground place, which, everyone talks about the East storyline. I wasn't expecting that to even be in it, so it was nice that there was a reference to it, but I was just sad that it was so, I don't know, it was done so short. I suppose it's because a lot of it is gameplay, and that's what I really like. And it would be a bit boring, I suppose, if they were ambushed by infected at every opportunity. But I guess they did have the whole foretelling of like, oh, there's like, tunnels down there that people cleared out and there's no infected anymore, and then having the reveal of them all, coming out at the end. So I don't know, it just felt like too much time was spent on bad guy chat when I would have preferred to have more time spent on Joel, Ellie and Henry and Sam, building that relationship, because it just happens too quickly, in my opinion. However, that said, I did really like the ending when they get to the bit where they're in the suburbs. I would have loved to see exploration of the suburbs as well, but maybe that's something, again, that you can't feel that without playing it. And that's why I came to my conclusion in the non-spoiler bit. It was like, some bits just won't feel the same without being on the stick. And that's okay, I guess. For me, it's just personally sad. But I like those moments, and they just don't exist. Anyway, we get to the bit with the sniper, and Joel has to do all that. I still fucking see you! That didn't get said. I was hoping that would get said, because I actually love the way that guy says that. Anyway, he goes around, and this bit I was like, this is cool now. The big showdown finally happens where the hunters, I can't remember that girl's name. It's Kathleen, I think, which is the name of my nan. So I found that quite... Kathleen is such a nice name, and that woman has just such a nice voice. That's an interesting contradiction that she is the big bad. But I quite like that. I like that uneasiness about that. So anyway, they meet up. There's a confrontation. They're finally going to sort it out, and then out of the floor come all of these infected, which was a very, very cool visual. Like them just like spilling out. Even in that part of the game, there just seems to be like an unsurmountable number, and it's like, how are they going to get out of this? That was pretty cool. I would like to give a shout out to the bloater, which I thought that looked really good, the bloater. When that came out, and then it killed the guy Perry, who was Tommy in the actual game, and it did the bloater death where it just like pulled his face apart from the jaw. I was like, that was good. I'm glad they did that, because those who know that's probably one of the most gruesome deaths. So that was cool to see. I did like how everyone kind of got their comeuppance in that section. It was like hell, it was crazy, and it was cool to watch. But then there was like this weird child girl infected. Now I was wondering if they were just not going to do stalkers at all in the game, because in the TV show, because I suppose it must be hard to show what a stalker is compared to a runner and a clicker. Like in the game, I don't know, I speak to some people and they just don't realise that stalkers are a thing. And I think it's because they are that sort of weird middle ground where they're not a runner, not quite a clicker, but all they need is time. You know where I'm going with that. Anyway, but in the game, you can feel a difference if you're looking out for it, because they are hiding, they are stalking you, which this girl does. But then she starts doing some ballerina flip shit, and I'm like, that's weird. So I feel like that was them trying to do a stalker, because I feel like in the game, they're going to oh my God, I keep calling it the game, sorry. In the TV show, they're going to have to explain that the stalkers, they can still see, but they also have like, the sort of, well, they're starting to get that echolocation, I guess. They're halfway in between. They can stalk their prey a bit more, which makes them, I think that makes them more deadly, to be honest, than a clicker. Because even though clickers are like scary, to have the eyesight and to be stalking you, like there are some cool parts in part 2 where the stalkers really get to, shine. So yeah, I feel like that was they're trying to do a stalker. So let's just talk about the final scene, which has Sam and Ellie doing the bonding. And this, a slight deviation as well, is in this, Sam seems to be younger and he is also deaf, which I thought was nice, but didn't really add. I was wondering if that would come to play in the story, but it didn't really. It was just like, I suppose it was nice seeing the writing go between the two characters. But I do really like that scene between Ellie and Sam in the game where they're talking about what they're afraid, and I'm not sure if it quite hits the same way when it's just written in, writing or whatever. Interesting that Ellie thought that she could cure him with the blood, but that didn't quite work. And then, I don't know, I really like in the game when, they're like, oh, go wake up Sam, and he's just standing there, whereas this time he's just sitting there, and then and you're like, oh no, like you kind of feel that's happening, whereas this, he just turns around and he goes straight, and he's just straight on her. And so yeah, because we didn't have the build up between the two, it just felt very rushed, and I didn't feel that emotional impact that was from the game. So yeah, that's pretty much how that ends, and then they go off, and Ellie writes on a little thing that she's sorry, and that's the end of the episode. So yeah, I don't know. I liked the ending. That ending sort of, I don't know what to call it. Is it an action sequence, I suppose? But the rest of it, I was like, maybe again it's because it's my favourite part of the game. It could never live up to all of the stuff that happened in such a short space of time. So yeah, there we go. That is my thoughts on episode 5. So let's move on to episode 6, which covers the events of Fall in the game. So Joel and Ellie have now made it into, I don't know, did they go to Wyoming? Is that what happens in the TV show? I'm just going to call it Wyoming because I know that's the game. And rather than being fall time, it's actually just straight up winter time now. And one of the big changes that I thought was actually really cool to see, but made for an interesting, I don't know, change narratively, but I suppose it makes sense, is that when they do find, oh my God, I just want to say I really love the dog section when they're like, this dog, he can smell infect and he'll rip you apart. That was super cool. I liked that. And there was that tension like, will it think that Ellie is infected or not? Which it didn't. So that's interesting that, she seems to have cured herself with immunity. Also, that dog looked like Luna, and I was like, Anyway, so then they get found by all these people and they get taken back to, so I like the tension building of like them meeting the elderly couple. They were quite sweet and they're like, no one comes back from there, it's blah, blah, blah. But they find out it's actually because it's a settlement, which Tommy and Maria are in, which are from the game. But what I thought was very interesting is that the settlement looks straight out of the part 2 settlement that they're in. So I'm just going to take a pause for some more. So that comes straight out of part 2. And it, again, I can't with the set design, like I can't praise it enough because it is on point. These sets look straight out of the game. The props, the clothing, everything, it's amazing. So every time I'm like, whoa, this, like even when they go into that bar and the lights are done in the same way, I was like, oh, a lot of cool Easter eggs for part 2 in this section as well. So, you know, using the horses, the place just looks like it's snow, there's snowball fights. It literally looks like the beginning of part 2 when you play as Ellie and you're walking through the town like, that was all really cool to see. And it was an interesting change, I suppose, from the dam section, which we're used to, like how they're like literally just living there, which I think is pretty cool. It's very, after all that we've seen, it's like a proper town. So yeah, it's cool to meet up with Tommy, and we see a few, as I said, Easter eggs. So we see a bit of Dina in the background, which I think was pretty cool, foreshadowing. There was something else that was another reference to part 2. Oh, she meets the baby horse, Shimmer, which is going to become her horse in part 2. I was like, these are some cool little details that I really enjoy seeing when they pop up. So yeah, that bit all happens, and I didn't quite I felt like enjoy is the wrong word. The scene between Joel and Tommy, where Joel is trying to, like, you know, palm Ellie off, and they're talking about what to be done in the situation. Joel is vulnerable. Again, it's a different take on that scene, where I suppose in the game, like, Joel was just like a hard ass. He's like, no, I don't want to do this. And then I liked the tension that was in the game, where, you know, they're happy to see each other, but Tommy still isn't quite on board with Joel being back, kind of, in a way, because he can see that, you know, Tommy's moved on from the times from before, but Joel, I don't know, I feel like he senses that Joel maybe hasn't, and he doesn't want to be brought back into that now that he has life with Maria. And I do like that, I have nothing but nightmares from those times. Like, that, I don't think was relayed in the TV show, and maybe that's not part of the story in this, but I do like that, not knowing, like, what was it that Joel did to protect Tommy back before, like, and Tom made Tommy leave and go to the Fireflies. Like, I find that quite interesting. Like, I guess we know that it's not good, and we know that Joel killed a lot of people in order to, you know, save the people that he loved, but I didn't quite feel that come across in this scene. It was more Joel talking about, you know, not being able to protect the people that he loved, which has been a theme throughout, you know, the show up until this point. So it made sense narratively for where we are in the TV show. But yeah, I was just sad that was kind of missed. And it was nice to see, like, you know, him remembering, like, Sarah as he's walking around, and I guess he's coming to terms with, you know, maybe Ellie's okay. And so there's a lot that doesn't happen in this, because again, a lot of ground is covered in the full section. So, you know, Ellie doesn't actually run away this time. In fact, Joel, they have the scene which is like, you are treading on some mighty thin ice, which was a nice scene. I like seeing it. The room looked exactly the same, but I don't know, it was interesting that he just storms off, because obviously in the game, you know, you're gonna have to fight someone because it's a game. And then he just sort of makes up his mind and changes it. I don't know. That felt very quick to me. I guess, again, it's because when I play the game, I'm feeling as the character, and you feel that time pass because you are living that time with the characters. Whereas in here, it was like, he was like, no, you ain't my daughter. Bang, slams door. The next morning, actually, I'll let you make the choice while I'm brushing this horse. Do you want to come too? Okay, cool. Like, I don't know. Some things just don't feel earned in the same way as they do in the game. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but that's the only way I can describe it. So then they're off, actually. I know. Oh yeah, there's something happening with Maria, where Maria's like, Joel ain't maybe a good guy, but, you know, that's all fine now because they're leaving. They're taking the horse and they're off. I was wondering if they were going to call the horse Callus or make a reference to that. Like, what? Like, what does he say in the game? Something like, "You are a weird kid," because he's like weirded out by that name. Anyway, they go on the horse and they go to the university, and then again, they have some nice scenes where you see them bonding more, it is really nice. But again, because it happens in a montage, it feels like it happens very quickly. Like, he just goes from being like, you ain't my daughter, to let's exchange cute stories about what we want to do with our lives. And, you know, he's opening up to her more, and she's like, you know, having a laugh with him. They get to the university. I do like the line that was still in, like, I guess the Fireflies turn into fucking monkeys. Like, I'm glad that was into it. Then the hunters come, and this is a very quick scene. Now, I did think that something else was going to happen, because we're seeing throughout this section that Joel is having some kind of problems, which I'm wondering what that will lead to. At first, I thought that would be the downfall of him at the end of 4, because I don't know what it is. He's like having some like, I don't know, I guess a heart problem. Is he going to like collapse at some point? I thought that was going to be what happened instead of what does happen in the game, where he falls and impales himself. But no, the hunters show up. There's a small skirmish. I do think it's funny that all of the combat scenes are like downscaled. Of course, it makes sense, because otherwise you have to watch him mass murder like a ton of people, which in video game world, we're just like, cool, fine. But in TV land, it probably does come a little bit like psychopathish. So it's a very small skirmish with some guy that he ends up killing in the same way, like giving it the good old chokehold, which looked exactly like straight out of the game. But this time he is stabbed, and we have the whole, come on, Joel, we have to go, get up, which like it's done so well in the game, that section. Like you desperately trying to protect Ellie, but you can't because you're falling over. And this is just why I love video games. I think this is just cementing in my head watching this why I love video games so much, because it's telling it. It's different playing the story and being an active participant than watching it. Like I just didn't feel it. Whereas when you're in the game and you're trying to shoot that guy and you just physically can't, and Ellie has to like step up and look after you, like. It just hits different. Anyway, then he falls. So he's been stabbed. They're doing the bit and he falls off. And then we're left with Ellie being like, come on, Joel, come on. And then boof, end of episode. So it was fine. As I said, it just raced through quite a lot. Not that much happens. I thought there were two very talky episodes, apart from the big sort of infected encounter at the end of part 5. I don't know. To be fair though, I'm making all these criticisms. I'm not really sure what else they could have done. Like it would have been weird for an attack to happen on the dam. I suppose the hunter section could have been a little bit more in when they get to the university, or maybe a little bit more looking around and trying to understand what's happening. It just sort of feels like they arrive and then they find out that they're not there and they're like, okay, cool, bye. So yeah, it just felt like a lot happened, or a lot didn't happen, to be quite honest. It just sped to the end. So what I am imagining is going to happen now in the next episode is it's going to be the Left Behind DLC. We're going to see Ellie and Riley's story. I'm wondering if they'll still do the parallel where, Ellie goes, well, I guess they're going to have to. If they're also, by the way, I'm a big fan of how they're putting the DLC into this bit now, because that's how I play the game. Whenever I get to the end of Fall, I then play the DLC because I like how that follows on thematically for me, or narratively. I don't know, I'm just saying words now. I think it's the coffee talking. It just feels like it flows better. Like I don't want to finish the game and come back to play the DLC. I'd rather finish the game on the actual ending and feel, complete, like resolved, rather than being like, oh, I've got this tail end thing to go. So I think it's going to be Ellie and Riley's story. I'm sure there'll be a bit in the mall, but maybe it won't be so much, because a lot of the mall is just like Ellie coming to terms with having to like find the medicine for Joel, but then also having the flashbacks of how, when she was last in the mall with Riley. So I feel like a big focus will be just on, maybe it'll be like a flashback episode, like Lost, like she goes into a store, I'm like, oh my God, this is the store. We did one of these, like she sees a photo booth and she's like, flashes back to when her and Riley did the photo booth. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that comes about, and it surely can't be the whole winter section, although maybe it could, I'm saying this, but maybe they're going to mix the mall section and the winter section all into one. They seem to be rapidly, going through a lot of the story beats. And how many episodes are left? There's next week. Are we on episode, we're on episode 6, and there's like episode 7, 8. Wait, we've got 1 week. God, there's only 3 episodes left, so maybe this is it. Maybe this could be winter part 1, winter part 2, and then spring. And then we're done. Wow. That is quite a jump. So yeah, that's my thoughts on these 2 episodes, which I watched very sleep deprived, so I'm sorry. But I would be very curious to see what your thoughts on the 2 episodes were. Thank you for bearing with whilst I was away last week. But yeah, leave your comments below, because I like doing these reviews after I've watched the episode and then seeing what other people, like without being influenced from other people's opinions. Like these are just my thoughts straight out of my brain. So yeah, I'm probably going to listen to the podcast to see why some of the changes were made, because I really do enjoy listening to the podcast. So yeah, I shall see you all next week for the review of episode 7. Hopefully that'll come out more promptly than this. Until then, endure and survive. Endure.